Danica, you're making the transition from being a race car driver to being an entrepreneur. Which is harder?
They're all hard. I think to reach the highest level of anything is really difficult and takes a lot of commitment. And at the end of the day, it just takes the fact that you are passionate about it, because it takes time. You know, I feel like in sports, especially in racing, it's like, you know, it's not 0 to hero, although it can go 0 to 0 pretty quick. It's not the other way around. You know, I started racing when I was 10, and I felt like I was really popular when I was in Formula Atlantic in my early 20s, and then that was nothing compared to then when I hit in 2005 in IndyCar, and then that was nothing until when I won in IndyCar, and then it was nothing until, you know, so it always is growing.
What has been the biggest surprise for you about being an entrepreneur?
I think that, you know, having a platform, that I already have that platform and an awareness and a following, and, you know, millions of followers and people that are curious about me. It's not that they become automatic buyers, investors, purchasers of your next products just because they exist or they're there, or their numbers on your social or on your showing up to your website. It doesn't completely translate, and so I've had to remind myself with some of the things that I've had to do for my other companies that while, you know, certain things that I wouldn't have ever showed up for racing because it, you know, didn't either, you know, wasn't enough people viewing it, didn't generate enough money, whatever it was, like I have to do for these other companies because they're startup. They're babies, and you have to create a foundation for them. But I did that for racing too. It's just that I forgot, and it was so long ago, and it went on for so long. So if I put as much time into all my other companies that I have now into racing, I mean, which I have time for, they're going to be very successful. But you just have to be patient, and just because I'm popular in one capacity doesn't mean that they're going to go buy my wine or buy my fitness book. You know, that doesn't mean it's going to completely translate.
What new muscles have you had to build, though, as you are building these companies?
Probably a little bit more of a hands-on approach with racing. I mean, I drove the car. I couldn't set it up. I couldn't, work on. I mean, like none of that. None of the other stuff was part of me. And I had people that planned all my, my schedules with the media and with travel and everything. So there was very little details that I had to worry about. I just had to be sharp. I had to be present, and I had to deliver when the time came. So my on switch was very, very on-off for the jobs that I had to do. But now I feel like I'm having to be a little more detail-oriented and follow up and ask a lot of questions and educate myself too, because they're new companies. And even just with my financials, just understanding things better instead of just being on autopilot and just having things happen. I have to be more detail-oriented, which is not my area of expertise, but it's an important part of the process right now.
As a race car driver, you were leading a team. Tell me about your leadership approach. What were the most important leadership lessons you've learned?
Trying to figure out how to get people to work hard for you. Trying to figure out, everybody's a little bit different, but just sort of that attentiveness, talking to people and hanging out and having a relationship so that they wanted to work hard for you because they were invested in your life. And the results had a direct relation to how you felt and your general everyday attitude. So people wanted to do a good job for you, and they saw the hard work you were putting in, being a part of everybody's life and making it so that they worked for you out of love. It wasn't about having a bad pit stop and being like, come on, and yelling at them, what was that? They know they did something wrong, being in, you can get people to work out of fear, but they're not going to work to the furthest extent out of fear. That only comes out of love and passion and care.
But how did you learn that? Because there are a lot of bosses who do like to yell and figure that's the best way to get things done. So what were some early leadership lessons for you?
I don't think I ever really was the kind of person that made people work out of fear. I don't think I yelled at them. I mean, I've been described as a very strong person, so I'm very direct, but I would say the only time that I can be really very direct and strong is like, the people that work, I still like to say with me, not for me, but for me, because I pay their salary. Like, they can name their price, but they're held accountable. They're held accountable, and I don't feel bad for asking for things. but I want everyone to be happy. And I think that's maybe just because I feel like I've learned in my life when I'm the happiest, I tend to work the best. And I don't know if it's necessarily, I mean, work the hardest, yes, but also just work the best.
So when you're hiring somebody for your race car team, for your businesses, what qualities are you looking for, and what does the job interview look like?
I've gone about hiring people in lots of different ways, everything from working with them to using a company that searches and does the interviews and vets them out and sends me videotapes of their interviews. I've gone about it in different ways, but what you're always looking for is I'm looking for confidence. You're looking for someone who you can look at and talk to and feel like they can just handle things. Because at the end of the day, that's why you're hiring, because you need someone to do a job for you, and that's because you can't do all of them yourself. So you want someone that doesn't need their hand held every step of the way. So you want someone with confidence. You want someone that carries themselves well. You also want someone that has maybe been there before a little bit. I think that for me, I'm always looking for someone with a little bit of experience. They don't have to be the most experienced and well-diverse person ever, but it's nice that they've had a little bit of on the field training for whatever it is that I'm looking for. So yeah, confidence, a little bit of experience, but ambition and general relationships. So again, when I'm hiring somebody through a company, I've never hung out with them. I don't know what they're like. So you're going off of a little bit more of their record, their presence on camera, their confidence there. But I've hired a couple of people where I just worked with them and I liked working with them. So comes in different ways.
And if you could only ask somebody one question in a job interview and hire them or not based on their answer, what would the question be?
I mean, I think the most valuable question is, what would you do if you could do anything in the world? And it doesn't even need to, the answer wouldn't even need to be work for you. In fact, if they answered like that, I'd probably be like, you're lying, you just want this job. But if they don't have an answer at all, that would tell me a lot. Because I think that everyone should have an answer for that. Because how else are you going to get there?
And you talked about the importance of confidence, but some people are frankly overconfident. So how do you figure that out?
Sure. Well, that's usually the overconfident people. I find that you can have plenty of confidence and not be off-putting. So for me, the overconfident that is a problem is usually insecurity, screaming, defensiveness, justification, and that's easy to sniff out. Having to toot their own horn usually means that they're like, no, see, I've really done good things. Like, you don't really need to say it. You just need to carry yourself well.
And if you were to hire somebody and meeting them for the first day of work, and you say to them, these are some things you should know about me, what would you say to them? What are your quirks? What are your pet peeves?
Number one, I want you to be here. And if there's a point in time that comes that you just don't want to be here, let me know. But in the meantime, we're going to have a good time. We're going to have fun. And I would let them know, I can handle anything you have to say. We can deal with anything. It doesn't have to always be nice. But if it's all in the interest of making the company better, making each other better, then it's always welcome.
So you've made a big career transition, obviously, raced cars all your life, and now you're an entrepreneur. What is your advice to other people who might be considering a pretty drastic career change?
That life is short and just go for it. I think people live off of pretty little, and I think that usually tends to be the fear, right? Is that you're like, well, you have bills, and there's, the financial side, I feel like, is a big thing that holds people back. And, maybe before you go for it, though, you can always start small. And that's what I've done. I mean, I haven't just transitioned into being an entrepreneur. I mean, I started these companies that I have while I was still racing. Luckily, I've had really good help along the way to do that, whether it's been GoDaddy for my websites and for, e-commerce and things like that, or whether it's been hiring new people on, or my people that I already have taking on jobs. So, so I started small. They were just side projects, passion projects, I now have time to dedicate fully to them. But you don't have to jump right in. You can kind of test you can kind of get things started. You can plant the seed before you have to completely jump ship. So start small, and then at some point in time, usually your gut tells you, your heart will tell you it's time to go. And, listen. And just don't be, anytime something changes, I feel like I'm pretty good with change, but even I, who am pretty good with it, there's that first thought of, ooh, I don't know, I'm not and then I go, wait, maybe it could be better than I ever expected, or ever could hope for, or ever imagine. And so let your mind go there. Be brave.
Do you miss being a race car driver?
I don't, no. I don't. What I loved about racing wasn't driving the car, really, so I can apply that to other areas of my life. For me, it was about setting goals and accomplishing them, so I'm a big believer in setting goals. Otherwise, how are you ever going to get there?
Yeah. Give us a reality check on what it's like to be a professional race car driver. What's the part of it that people don't know about it that's not so fun?
I mean, there's a lot of things out of your control. It's definitely a team sport. I mean, I know that I'm the only one out there driving it, but there's the car side of things, all the people that it takes to build it. There's the people working on the setup. There's the people making the changes and how detail-oriented they are with making those. So I think that was something that was very frustrating, is that there tends to be a lot that's out of your control. Other than that, I mean, for sure, maybe not the IndyCar season, but the NASCAR season was extremely long. I mean, it's Valentine's Day to Thanksgiving, so it's basically, 9 months of the year, and you get 2 weeks off maybe in the whole time, so 2 weekends. It's very long. It's a very long season. A lot of travel. There's really very little home games for racing. There would be in NASCAR, there would be 2 Charlotte races and a couple others that you could drive to, but 30 others you had to fly to. So a lot of travel, a complete sacrifice of free time. I never even, if I have friends that were getting married or having a party, I didn't even bother asking when it was, because it's going to be on the weekend, and I know it's a no.
What is the 1% X factor difference between a winning race car driver and somebody who comes in second or third? What is that subtle difference?
When you're doing anything, but especially sports, there's like this next level consciousness that can kick in when you need to do something, or you really, really want to, so you need to. Whether it's like whatever, it's the World Series, it's the Super Bowl, it's the last minute of a game, it's the last 5 laps of the race, it's a restart with, it's a, last lap of a super speedway, whatever. Like, it can be like these little moments, and I guess you see them kind of pop up when, let's say, making a pit stop and there's a penalty and you have to go to the back and it kills you. Maybe you're running, like 7th or something. You get put to the back, and then all of a sudden, somehow, it only takes you a few laps and you're right back there again. You're like, wait, it took me all race to get there. And then you're right back there again, because you just sort of like flip the switch and you go, I'm doing this, and you just go. And so I think that those who are able to tap into that next level and attach that confidence to it, that they're going to make it happen, the more minutes of the event, the race, the game, the whatever, that you can do that and you can be at that level, the better you are.
And can you access that willfully? Is that a switch you can flip, or is that something you can control?
I think that I don't think that it's an easy, like, here I go, because you just keep the switch on, wouldn't you? I think it's, it's what sparks it. It's how easily it's sparked. Okay. But I don't think you can stay there all the time.
What are the headwinds that you've had to navigate because you're a woman?
It's always been hard to get everyone to believe in what I believe is possible. and really believe it in their hearts, like, oh yeah, I know you can do well, maybe, but to really truly believe that I'm capable, and then with that comes the work on the car and the setup and the attitude and the general emotional vibe that they have towards me the rest of the time. That goes so far, and they're just, that I think for a girl it's harder to come by.
And what is your advice to women who in the workplace are having to navigate some of those headwinds?
Mm-hmm. I mean, time is just what you have to put in. You have to keep proving to them over and over again, not because you want to prove them wrong, but just like doing what you do, but doing it well over and over again. Definitely the more time you spend with people and proving your worth, your capabilities, your abilities, that will desensitize them to something that's out of the norm. But I mean, there's some people you'll never convince, but then there's also some guys that'll never. It could be a male-dominated world, and there'll be some guy that another guy won't believe in. So it's not like it's just because you're a girl they don't believe in you. It happens to guys too. It's just, if they have more reasons to think that you're not capable, then it takes, it's going to be a little more common for you. So I think that's just kind of what I dealt with. And I think that that's the same thing in the workforce. In general, you have to put in your time. So if you're new, you've got to do it. If you're different, you might have to do it a little longer. But it's possible.
But there are those moments where you might be being mansplained or cut off in a meeting or something. Have there been moments for you where you've had to send a very clear signal, and what was it, and how do you do it?
I've done it before a few times, and I just will stick to my point. I think that sometimes people try and diminish what you're saying and dismiss what you're saying, and you just stick to your point. You make it very clear. And if it takes raising my voice, I sure as hell will. You make a lot more of a difference if you just make your point.
That's great.
Yelling doesn't really, yelling, I can yell right now, nobody's scared, right? Because I'm not yelling about anything. But when you say something very blunt, very straightforward, and you stick to your point, and you don't get pulled in different directions, manipulated conversationally, and you just stick to your bullet point of like, this is what I'm talking about. We're not talking about all these other things. We're talking about this. Then you're much more effective.
Danica, you've broken ceilings in a male-dominated sport. Looking back on how you did that, what were the things that worked really well, things you could have done differently, and your advice to other women trying to do the same?
Well, it took me a long time to really use being a girl to my advantage. And then once I did, because I never wanted to do that because I felt like I was setting myself, making it. People didn't really believe girls could drive anyway, and so I really didn't want to throw it in their face and make them think about that even anymore. But when I would use it outside of the car in different ways, and not as like a truly just like get me a job kind of thing, but just because I was curious, or like I thought, this photo shoot will be fun, or something like that, I realized, wow, it doesn't take away from my driving. I'm still the same driver. But I have now created a following, an awareness, a curiosity, and especially in racing being a sponsor-driven sport, it was effective. So, partly I waited, maybe I waited too long, I don't know, but I still was driving Indy cars in my early 20s, so probably not too bad. So I'm glad that I finally used being a female in a way that I felt comfortable, and to have some fun and show other sides of my personality. That's what I did, whether it was Swimsuit Issue, whether it was GoDaddy commercials, or whatever it was, like, I was able to show different sides of my personality. And so I wouldn't have changed a thing, honestly. Like, I'm not one of those people who looks back, so I'm happy where I am today.
And your advice to other women who are trying to break their own ceilings?
I would just say that if you're doing something that you love to do and you have passion for it and you're committed from the heart, then whatever you do will be fine. People can really sense that authenticity and that true passion. So it doesn't really matter how you do it then or what you do. Maybe you're going a more, business route. Maybe you're going a more, creative route. Maybe you're a more sexy feminine route. Maybe you're a more tough route. Maybe you're more, I don't care. People resonate with authenticity and passion. And so if you're doing the job that you want, then no matter how you draw attention or how you show yourself off or make yourself more visible, it's all fine because it's just who you are. There's no right or wrong answer for that.
Do you think we'll ever see a professional football player who's a woman?
Men and women, we have different hormones. We all have all the same ones, but they're different amounts. And so the strongest woman in the world is not going to stack up next to the strongest man in the world. So, that is a physicality sport. That is a speed, power, jumping, throwing. I think it's going to be a lot harder. For me, I was lucky in racing because the car didn't know the difference between a girl and a guy driving it. It didn't take physicality necessarily to drive it. It took endurance, and definitely some strength, but it was, peak was not there. And so in so many other sports, peak performance, peak power, peak strength is something that's part of it. And I think that does make it a little harder. And you know what, there's things that, are gonna always be a little bit more female driven than male too. So we are different. We're all one, but men and women, have a little bit of different makeup. So yeah, anything's possible. Less likely, but possible.
What have you learned from Aaron Rodgers, and what has he learned from you?
Aaron's really very, very smart, especially with math. So financials or rates of return or you name it, anything that has to do with numbers. He's very detail oriented, and he's great memory. So, he just gets really integrated with his companies and with the things that he's doing and his business ventures, his own financials. He's just really, very, very attentive. And so I'm, again, not an attention to detail girl, and I tend to trust people too much. So kind of being more present with that and paying attention a little bit more and getting a grip on it and understanding it better. And then, I don't know, he'd have to answer what he's learned from me. That's what I've learned from him.
What do you think he would say?
Be positive.
Mm-hmm.
He's a pretty even keel guy, but I'm kind of one of those people that fake it till you believe it. So I can sort of manufacture some happiness if I need to. And just generally, creating a space of peace. So when he comes home, it's like happy, comfortable, good vibes, not, low vibe, drama going on. It's just be happy, burn some incense, play some music, let's relax. So that's what I try and bring, whether that's what he's learned from me or not. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll have to ask him.
Okay. What's your morning routine?
I get up usually about an hour to an hour and a half before I have to go do anything, and that's because I like to get up, put my pajamas on, make coffee, number one. I usually open the door, let the dogs out, push the coffee button to turn it on, get things warmed up, and then just sit there and have a cup of coffee and then make breakfast and then get ready and go. And I usually go work out and then run some errands, come back and make some phone calls, answer some emails, maybe work out again. Depends on the day.
And when you were racing, what was your routine just to sort of work through? It's an endurance race, right? So how did you stay healthy? How did you stay productive?
Yeah. I'm a pretty healthy lifestyle kind of person anyway, dairy-free, gluten-free, grain-free, bean-free, you name it. I have a pretty healthy diet. I care about what goes into my body. Being organic matter, I sure like to put good organic matter back into it. My mental state, my positivity, my goals, keeping those in mind to manifest and drive home what it is that I truly want and why I'm doing something. But my general routine is very similar. I don't have something totally different I didn't have something different on race day versus any other day. I mean, maybe it was a little bit more compacted, but for the most part, it's pretty similar.
Right.
There was no reason to create a different vibe on those days versus another. I still walk in every day wanting to kick ass, so.
Where does that come from? Where does that drive to kick ass come from?
I think I've had great modeling of parents growing up. I mean, my parents were extremely hard workers, and their glass company started in their garage, and then, you know, my sister and I would be, you know, bring our sleeping bags to their shop where my dad was working, and, you know, him and my mom would work till 2 in the morning, and we'd be sleeping, and, you know, so they're really, really hard workers and entrepreneurs themselves. I mean, everything from a glass business to an oil exchange to a coffee shop. I think they had a drywall company maybe. I don't know. They had all kinds of different things. Nature comes from them and the nurture came from them, so there you go. So,
right.
Entrepreneurs and hard workers.
What's your advice on developing a healthy relationship with failure? Because
Oh, I thought you were going to say food.
no, with failure, because a lot of people, they can't really handle failure. But, you know, as a race car driver, you've had your moments and you come back. So
Yeah.
how do you process that?
Yeah, I think you look on the outside of so many things and you just see people succeeding, right? And then you see drama. But you see people being successful and you're like, I'm just not accomplishing anything. But if you looked individually, each one of those people that are doing something great, getting an award, whatever it is, winning, go ahead and look deeper and see all the times that they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we highlight drama that gets, you know, that's clickbait, and then it's, you know, successes and wins and victories and trophies and awards. So, you know, we forget to look a little deeper and realize that there was a lot of failure along the way. You know, just because somebody wins Best Actor, how many movies did they do that they didn't? Are you saying that they're a failure then? You know, so failure is a part of it. Failure is a part of life, period. And so, you know, there's a million sayings about, you know, failure, but really it's about how you deal with it. And I think how quickly you can get out, because you're going to be disappointed at failure for sure. How quickly can you get out of that mental space and into a new one and start transitioning and evolving your reality into something else? Because if you wake up and say it's going to be a horrible day, pretty good chance it's going to be a horrible day, because that's what you've just decided it's going to be. And if you wake up and you say it's going to be a great day, you have a much higher chance that it's going to be a great day. And if something comes along your way, you know, it might be a blip in your day as opposed to a complete, you know, meltdown. So, you know, how quickly you can get out of a funk or get out of a mental space that is deteriorating on your mental and physical well-being is probably really what makes someone different from another who is trying to be successful.
And if you were to teach a class to MBA students, what would the topic be?
Power of the mind, neuroplasticity, retrain your brain. It would be called neuroplasticity. Gosh, that was a big word. I feel really good about myself. This is what my GED is making me feel right now. My insecurity is the GED, and that was what making me really excited about saying a big word. But I would say that it would have to do with just the power of your mind and the power of intention and the power of truly believing in something, and then the methods to how you arrive, you know, where you want to be. So whether it's faking it till you believe it, whether it's writing things down, whether it's visualizing, meditation, whatever it could be. And sometimes for me, it's like, it's nice to kind of know some science, right? So I'm reading a book that's got all kinds of examples of the power of the mind and how effective it is in different scenarios. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're like, wow. So, I mean, I feel like we're hearing more and more about this, but it would be that. And we can really create the reality that we want if we truly want it.
NASCAR is facing some challenges. What's your take on what's happening?
You know, I've had some thoughts about that over the years, and I just think that I think there's plenty of platform for success for a company to be involved and, you know, grow their business and create awareness. But I do think that the advertising platform is and the way it's delivered is a little bit out of date. You know, just because you put something on the side of a car doesn't mean that someone's just going to go buy it. You know, I think that there was a point in time where that was a primary form of advertising, but now we've got people that do it on social and get, you know, are very successful to show how they're using your product when they cook, you know, and, you know, there's way deeper integrated and authentic ways of promoting a product now than there used to be. And so I think it doesn't resonate as much, but it doesn't mean that a company can't come in and create that kind of a program and still have their name on the side of the car as a pivot point to get attention, to look deeper and see the authenticity. But yeah, I mean, it's big money. I mean, it's $10-20 million at least to sponsor a car, you know. Wow. For the year or for most of the year, and you know, that's a lot of advertising dollars when they could spread that out in different ways, and especially with all the different ways of advertising with the social platforms and digital platforms, there's a lot more options out there that are a lot less expensive. So I just think that, yeah, the sport's too expensive. You know, horses and horsepower are very expensive.
There's a lot of pressure on both CEOs, celebrities, athletes to provide their insights on what's going on in society more broadly. How do you deal with that?
Well, unless I'm truly educated in something, I by no means speak up about it, or if I'm not passionate about it. But I mean, I think that it depends on what your goals are, you know, and what you're passionate about. Maybe something has triggered you that's happened in the public and you feel like you need to respond to it. But generally, sports has been one of those sort of off limits for religion and politics kind of areas. And I mean, I've stuck to that. And that's also because I also don't really care. Like, I mean, for me, I've never been super into either of those areas anyway. But other people are. And, you know, it's still a free country to say what you want, right?
It is.
I think.